and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan, and today we are doing a Gameweek 21 wildcard video, a video where I'm going to show you what I think is the ideal team to have now going forward for the next few game weeks, taking advantage of these doubles and stuff like that. So even if you're not on a wildcard right now, maybe this can kind of serve as a bit of a template of where you want your team to start looking a little bit like, rather than necessarily actually using your wildcard. If you do have a wildcard, I don't necessarily recommend using it unless your team is in a real mess. I think you should save it if you can. But if you do enjoy this video, regardless, please do leave a like, please do subscribe. Without further ado, let's have a look at this wildcard team. Okay, so we spent 99.8 million on this team, so I think most people should be able to afford this team, maybe even make a couple of upgrades. Let's start you off in goal with Edison, the only nailed on Man City defender. I think the only other player you could maybe consider is John Stones, perhaps, if you want to go for the kind of defensive route for a Man City defender, or maybe Nathan Ake at a stretch, but certainly Edison is just the safest, most nailed on one here. You've got Wolves as the next fixture, and we've got that double game week against Aston Villa and Arsenal in a few weeks' time as well. So hopefully, finally, we should start seeing some clean sheets from Manchester City, and Edison is going to be the man to get them with that nailed onness. Into defence, we've got Kieran Trippier, no doubt about that. Crystal Palace, West Ham and Bournemouth in the next three fixtures. We should be expecting 3 clean sheets out of 3, you would hope, for those fixtures, so fingers crossed for that one. Even the Liverpool game, potentially some clean sheets there as well, so that should be very nice for our Newcastle boys. And Trippier, of course, has that amazing attacking threat, which means even if he's not getting assists, it does mean that he is creating chances, which adds to his bonus points as well. So that's kind of why Trippier has just turned into this kind of 8-pointer, 9-pointer machine. He just gets it every single game week. It's absolutely insane, but an absolute must-have in your FPL team when on a wild card, definitely for sure. Next up, I've got Gabriel. So Gabriel I've put in here. I know a few people will say, I think I might prefer to go for a Ben White, and that's fair enough. If you want to save a little bit of money and go for a Ben White, that's absolutely fine too, but I do recommend going for at least one Arsenal defender here. And the reason I've gone for Gabriel is because his attacking threat is just so good. Like we see compared to other Arsenal defenders, he is always taking the most amount of shots on. He's the aerial threat from those corners, from those set pieces. We know Arsenal this season and last season a little bit have kind of relied quite a little bit on those set pieces to get themselves over the edge, to get those goals, which has just been an important part of their play. They've really improved in those set pieces. So we're going to probably expect that Gabriel is going to get a couple of chances, and particularly when we look towards the double game weeks against Brentford and Man City in a few weeks' time, teams against like Everton and Aston Villa, you could maybe expect that Gabriel could make the difference with a headed goal in one of those situations. And although it's not guaranteed to happen, if the chance is super high, I wouldn't say they're super high, but you have to put yourself in these positions to be lucky. And the kind of guy who will get lucky with these attacking returns from defence and will get you those big 15-pointers is a player like Gabriel. So really looking out for him, and I think he's my favourite Arsenal defender to own right now. But again, of course, if you do prefer Ben White, that's fine too. He is very good value for money at 4.7 million. And finally, we're going to complete this defence with Botman. So the 4.5 million Newcastle defender. You can't really go too wrong with Newcastle defenders, to be fair, can you? They're just getting clean sheets every single game. And Botman at 4.5 million. Super cheap. You can even bench him sometimes if you want to, if you've got a slightly better defender on your bench, which we may talk about very soon. But yeah, Botman, really good value for money. Probably the best value for money defender in the entirety of FPL right now. And it allows you to double up on that Newcastle defense. Currently, so many people own Newcastle defenders and own, you know, Trippier, Botman, Cher, Dan Burn and Nick Pope as well, of course, that just by owning Trippier alone, you don't really benefit too much from the clean sheets because everyone else is getting the clean sheets for Trippier along with all of the other extra defenders and goalkeepers they have from Newcastle as well. So by doubling up on the Newcastle defense, it means you're actually finally taking advantage of the clean sheets that they're getting. So I do like the double up here a lot. Moving on into midfield, we have got Bruno Fernandes. So we do like Fernandes, and the reason why we like Fernandes is because the double game week is very likely next game week. So in game week 22, he could be facing both Crystal Palace and Leeds United, both games at home. That could be a really nice double for Manchester United. And we've seen Bruno Fernandes playing in that number 10, looking very good at the moment on those set pieces, being creative and taking shots as well. We particularly saw that in double game week 20, didn't we? So even though the next fixture is against Arsenal, it's a bit of a tough one, and I have to say this team is very much set up for several game weeks. So if you are just looking at this team expecting it to be super good for game week 21, I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. Game week 21 is going to be a low-scoring game week for a lot of people, but this team really allows you to benefit in the long term. And even though we've got Fernandes, difficult fixture against Arsenal away, after that it's looking really, really good in terms of fixtures for Fernandes. So definitely a kind of player who could do very well in that nice double game week if it comes about in game week 22. We can't find out about that until it will be closer to the game week 22 deadline before we even know about this double game week, because we have to wait for the next round of cup fixtures to happen. But if you're wildcarding now, you're not going to have the luxury of being able to see the next round of cup fixtures. So you're going to have to kind of make some predictions, and the prediction is that Manchester United do indeed get a double game week. I think it's very likely that they do in game week 22, so just keep an eye on that one. And of course we've got Rashford as well. How can we not have Rashford in such scintillating form at the moment, isn't he? Even though he did blank the last game against Crystal Palace, that's like a one-off game. Like, he's scoring pretty much every game aside from that, isn't he? So yeah, another player you're really going to want to own, and maybe actually could benefit from the high line of Arsenal and maybe get in behind and score some goals that way as well. You can imagine that would be the case, but I don't need to convince you guys that Rashford is a great pick. He's sort of one of the first players on our team sheets at the moment, isn't he? Next up, we've got Ødegaard. So yes, obviously he is the star of Arsenal right now. We like him a lot. He's taking shots on, he's being creative, and he seems to be the best Arsenal asset. The underlying stats suggest that. When you watch him play as well, that suggests that as well. He is taking a lot of shots from range, so he's not necessarily generating super high XG, but he's still generating more XG than some of his teammates, and he's, you know, that really clinical player. You could arguably say he is one of the best midfielders in world football right now. So he is going to be able to, you know, make good of his numbers, which is exactly what he's been doing. We've got that double game week against Brentford and Man City in a couple of weeks. We've got this game against Everton in game week 22 as well. So lots of things that are really looking good, really looking like we want to be going for some Arsenal players, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing. And Ødegaard above Saka, above Martinelli, is my favourite pick for this slot. If you have the opportunity to start again, pick a new player for this position, the Arsenal midfielder position, you go for Ødegaard. If you already have Saka, if you already have Martinelli and you don't have Ødegaard, would I make that switch? I'm not sure that I would, but if you're starting afresh, transfers, unlimited transfer, you know, it's no issue, then you may as well make the switch to Ødegaard, right? And let's finish off the midfield with Kaoru Mitoma. So Mitoma has got an amazing run of fixtures here. Leicester and Bournemouth, the next two fixtures in particular, I'm really liking the look of, because Leicester are in disarray, Bournemouth are in disarray. There's going to be goals available for a Brighton team that is scoring a lot at the moment, and Mitoma's underlying stats are just so nice right now. He's a real differential at 2% owned, and although a lot of people are going for Solly March, and if you prefer March, by the way, that's fine. March is a good shout too, but Mitoma's numbers are looking a little bit better than March's, and when you kind of watch them play, March is kind of, you know, he's taking these random shots from long range and they're finding the back of the net, which can happen when you're in an amazing form, but I do worry with March whether that can continue for a long time. When Mitoma, you kind of watch him and you think, actually, this is a really good player. You know, he is making good of the numbers that he is actually generating, that he's creating, and he seems to be like kind of on the right level. Like, he's not overperforming his numbers, he is just playing fantastically. And I really like that about him right now, and he's a joy to watch as well. PhD in dribbling, what they say about this guy. He is an absolute machine. So really like this guy. A really nice shout for the next few game weeks to see what he can do. Bit of a differential as well, which is a bit of fun. Moving up front, we've got a really boring front three. So Erling Haaland, you know, no doubt about that. Wolves at home, double game week coming up. You've got to have him in your team, really, don't you? So there you go. There's your Erling Haaland. Let's get him out the way. Harry Kane is up next. Fulham away. Everyone has Harry Kane as well, I would probably say at this point, you know, or a lot of people certainly. He's playing really well, doing really well for Spurs. The rest of Spurs, not so great, but Harry Kane is doing really well. And they've got some good fixtures coming up. You know, Fulham and then obviously Man City, not a great fixture, but we've already seen that Spurs do have a little bit of a knack of being able to get a goal or two against Man City. They've been doing it for years. Leicester, which is a nice fixture, and West Ham, which is a nice fixture as well. So really good fixtures. You know, even if you kind of discount that Man City fixture and kind of say, nah, it's an okay fixture for Spurs in particular, these kind of fixtures, they're good in general for Kane, and we do expect him to get some returns across the next 4 game weeks. So I like this one a lot. I'm going to finish off with Tony as well, who plays Leeds away next, and Leeds have been really bad defensively recently, so I do expect Brentford to be able to go there and score a couple of goals, and if they're scoring a couple of goals, well, who's going to be scoring them? It's going to be even Tony, of course. So yeah, we expect Tony will do quite well in this fixture. Southampton at home up next after that as well, which is pretty decent. Arsenal away, not so great. Crystal Palace there as well. So, but yeah, generally speaking, Next couple of game weeks, we think Tony will probably make very, very good. You know, even if you have to remove him at some point, then he's still going to be pretty good. And then onto the bench, guys. We've got Ward, just the standard backup goalkeeper at this point. We've got Luke Shaw, who I don't fancy at Arsenal away, but I would definitely be very keen to be playing him every game week after that one. I think a lot of you guys are going to have to make this decision. Do you fancy an Arsenal clean sheet or a Man United clean sheet? Well, the kind of the artificial intelligence and the algorithms and all of these kind of different models are predicting that Gabriel will score slightly higher than Luke Shaw. So that's why we're going for Gabriel above Luke Shaw. I say slightly higher. It's a little bit significant. Like, there's a 1 predicted point difference there. So that's actually reasonably significant. So yeah, Gabriel is the choice that you would go for out of the two. I know ideally you wouldn't have to play either of them, would you? But, you know, like I say, this team is set up for multiple game weeks and it's not focusing too much on the immediate. And after this game week, it's going to look really insane. And I'm going to tell you kind of how that's going to be the case as well. Got Andreas, standard bench fodder. Bueno, standard bench fodder as well. That's pretty good. So yeah, this team, why this is so great to be set up a bit longer term. Actually, let's throw in the captain's armband on Haaland first, vice captain on Kane. But yeah, the reason why this team is so nicely set up for the slightly longer term is because it actually has a lot of players with double game weeks, potentially. So, first of all, we've got Manchester United players. We've got 3 of them, so they're likely to double in 22. So, we've got 3 double game weeks for that week. Now, after that, we move into game week 23, and at this point is where you would probably make a change. So, no transfers for game week 22. You're already set up very well for 22. You can see this team looks fantastic for game week 22. For game week 23, we do need to make a couple of changes. So, what you would probably do is you'd remove Bruno Fernandes and you'd remove Mitoma, and you'd replace them with probably a Mahrez and a Martinelli, or a Mahrez and a Saka, or maybe a Kevin De Bruyne and a Martinelli if you have enough money in the bank somehow. Yeah, and you could kind of make some kind of move like that, where you get in, you replace Fernandes and Mitoma with a Arsenal midfielder and a Man City midfielder. You could go a slightly different way. You could remove Tony perhaps and downgrade him to an Nketiah. But the key thing here is that we're removing players from one of the following 4 teams: Manchester United, Newcastle, Brighton and Brentford, because these are the teams most likely to blank in game week 25. And I know a lot of people will just be ignoring these players. They'll be ignoring players from Man United, Newcastle, Brighton and Brentford because they might, well, likely to blank in game week 25. But these players and these teams are good, very good players with very good fixtures, so we can't afford to ignore them really. So what we need to do instead is make sure we have a plan to remove them, a plan to replace them, and that's exactly what we're doing here. We're planning to replace players from these teams that are likely to blank in 25 and replacing them with players that actually double in game week 23. So that really helps you out there. So this is kind of what I'm thinking with a team like this. That's the kind of moves I would be making. I'd try and save my game week 22 transfer. Immediately after a wild card, you shouldn't need to make too many changes anyway. This team is super well set up for 22. After those changes, it's super well set up for 23, 24 as well, and 25. By that point, you'll have another couple of free transfers to use to just remove 1 or 2 more of your blanking players and bench the rest. The rest have really good fixtures in game week 25 as well. So it's a good team. It's a really good team that serves you well for the long term and allows you to navigate the blanks very, very well. It allows you to have pretty much maximise the players you have for double game weeks as well. You know, 3 City, 3 Arsenal for game week 23. For game week 22, you'll have triple Man United there as well. It's looking really, really good. So there's the team. I hope you like it. You know, let me know what you think. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you did enjoy this one, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe if you're new around here as well. Don't forget, there's been loads of other FPL content on the channel over the week. If you want to go check it out, my team selections, some different videos about transfers that you could potentially be using, do recommend you go check them out. So, yeah, that's going to be it from me today. Make sure you join us on the streams over the weekend. But aside from that, guys, thank you so much for watching once again, and I will see you later, mates.